Hello and welcome to Dr. Akmal Makhdum's YouTube channel, a psychiatrist, teacher of psychiatry, and a commentator on social issues. Today we'll be discussing the applications of the forgotten philosophies.
In terms of the application, we talked of many aspects. First aspect was chatter, the Heideggerian aspect of chatter, in which what he suggests is that when you lead inauthentic lives, those lives are based on what other people say.
Right.
And so, yeah, sorry, you want to say?
And the question was that we got from our viewers was that how do we apply that? Because, for example, in the Pakistani community, lives are based on chatter. What would you say about that?
I think we need to understand chatter first, or try to understand it. And obviously, one doesn't know the mind of the philosopher, and one cannot just apply everything on every society. So we need to define our own chatter. Chatter is something which other people expect you to do. It is not your own inner thought and not your own inner conscience. Now, when you are living in a society and you're part of a history of that society, you are created to an extent defined by that history, then of course you are constantly looking at how it defines you. And because it is your identity, in terms of your caste, in terms of your creed, in terms of your color, in terms of your socio-economic background, in terms of your history, of your family, of your ancestors. So these are the things that, to an extent, are the external things that define you. Now, the chatter could be that if I belong to a particular class, a socio-economic class, if I belong to a particular zat, a particular caste, then what is expected of me? What does being a Jat mean? What does being a Rajput mean? What does being a Sayyid mean? You understand what I'm saying? So the point is that is chatter. That has got nothing to do with you and your own conscience. These are standards and expectations of a group that is entirely external to you. Now, because you have to coexist in harmony and love with them, you need to find an authentic way of engaging with that. So if the zat means that the other zat are unholy or inferior, and that I should look at my self-determination, as Hegel says, or my inauthenticity as a human being, or my lack of call of conscience is saying that this other person from another zat is inferior, then I'm leading an inauthentic life. Because it is not just, it is not in accordance with conscience, not in accordance with humanity. So if I do things which are expected of me, which do not create a synthesis, or those which do not resonate with how a human being, the core spiritual being wants.
Okay.
And that is where you need to separate yourself. Now, it doesn't mean that you reject it outright and start a crusade against it and start a jihad against it. The point is that how do you survive with that? How do you live with that? How do you accommodate your own conscience while living in harmony with that social construct?
Okay, that sounds like it's a very complicated thing to do because
It's a tough thing to do. Now, the thing is not complicated. The thing is that I am I, and I need to define myself. If I define myself as something that everybody else expects of me, you've defined me as a psychiatrist or teacher of psychiatry, that's really got nothing to do with me in terms of me as an individual. I became a psychiatrist because I had to do what everybody else expected me to do and achieve that standard of being a psychiatrist.
okay.
Or not. And the teacher of psychiatry means what?
Mm.
So I cannot become a teacher of psychiatry without being what other people wanted me to be.
Mhm.
So what I'm trying to say to you is that there is a deeper meaning, and that only comes generally when you are confronted with risks. And that is what Heidegger suggested, that when your being is confronted with extinction, as we are now, not looking at extinction, but a definite mortality. Thousands of people are dying every day, all across the world. Nobody knows what's going to happen. That is when there is the being has to have a pause, as we are all in a state of pause, but we are in a state of external pause. We need to be in a state of an internal pause as well, and we need to see how do we define ourselves as positive human beings.
Okay, that's an interesting point. Now, you mentioned about Heidegger's chatter, which we just discussed, and then Hegel's self-determination.
Yes.
Would you agree or disagree, or what are your thoughts on the fact that maybe in countries like Britain, we are so focused on self that we've forgotten about the collective? I mean, these are the arguments about the differences in the culture, right? The West and the East.
I think that,
Was that
it is actually a misconception that in Britain we are entirely individualized. We are individualized in the sense that this is what we are told that we are. We are told we are free, but I do not see anybody, breaking the red light. How are you free? You're not free. You have to pay tax. You don't pay tax, you go to jail. You have to pay your council tax. Even the elderly, they don't pay tax, they go to jail. So the thing is that this is all collective. So there are so many things you do from the moment you wake up to the moment you go off to sleep, which are entirely collective.
But
So it is for the benefit of the collective. So you have to stop at the red light and the other have to go on the green light. That is not an individual choice. It is not self-determined. It is a collective chatter which says you need to follow it.
But then that proves Hegel's theory that we do need these institutions and systems in place because, for example, in Pakistan, you can break the red light. A lot of people do, and then that leads to chaos.
Now, then the other thing is that also depends on the chatter, that society, the more you break the law, the more macho, the more powerful you are.
Okay.
So this is what the chatter determines. This is what the identity is defined as. What is Pakistani psyche in that sense? You walk like a hooligan, you talk like a hooligan, you have weapons in your hand, you show off your wealth and your power, and you claim that you are respectable. Gone are the days when people of letters, the men of knowledge or women of knowledge were respected. They are in many respects, but I do not see professors as icons anymore. There was a time when one teacher got sacked from his position as principal and vice chancellor of a Pakistani university. That was the main headline all across Pakistan for days, that great scholar was sacked or suspended from the college or from the university. That is how standards have changed. In Pakistan, if you stop at a green light, there'll be people who will be giving you bad looks and stares.
Red light.
Oh, sorry, yeah, red light. Yeah.
I think we would all be
there you go,
swearing
yeah.
if someone stopped at red light.
So the point is that these are how collectives are defined. This is how, so nobody stops at a red light. Nobody pays tax. Out of a country of 220 million, now 800,000 are paying tax.
Okay, another point. So let's bring it back to UK now. This comment of chatter. Within the Western world and media, we're seeing this cancel culture. Like Hegel said that you need things that contradictory views in order to grow, etc. But we have this, if someone says something wrong, we try and take their platform away. If we don't agree with it, we take their platform away. So how do we manage it in these
And
elements?
this is exactly what is a non-Hegelian and non-dialectical approach. Because if a philosopher is saying and has proven that growth occurs when an idea meets with another idea, when they clash and comes out something different. So once upon a time, the idea of nationalism, nationalistic racial politics was deemed to be the idea. Italy all became fascist. Spain became fascist. Germany became fascist. You know, everybody was worshipping those icons of fascism. So much so that there was a fascist party in America. There were fascists in England marching in East London in those days. Now, the thing is that then it met an entire opposite move. They had a violent confrontation because both needed violence to resolve itself, because fascism, violence is somehow inherent to it, because it means crushing the other. So when it all clashed, came out with liberal democracy. A democracy that suggested that everybody's got the right to say what they want. But once again, you see a concept which people say liberal fascism, where the liberals do not have the patience for the other point of view to come. So it has to be either liberal or not at all. So that is where I think that we need to now start challenging that. You cannot take anybody's platform away. Because you do take somebody's platform away, whereas the antithesis to the synthesis or to the thesis will come. Who will challenge your thesis? So, so that is the point. So for the synthesis to become, you have an idea, the thesis, there has to be an antithesis, and then there needs to come a synthesis of what is slightly more balanced.
Because even this approach like liberal fascism or fascism, it's even bleeding into the arts, the culture, the different expressions. If you turn on the news, you say something wrong, game over. You create something artistically which people may deem as maybe racist or intolerant. Cultural appropriation, these words are and these things are all being thrown around. I mean, how are we supposed to ignore the chatter when they can destroy our day-to-day life?
But that's the point, that the growth is extremely messy. Growth is extremely turbulent. Growth is full of pain, misery, crying. The child grows crying, wanting milk. And this is how it needs to grow. Because the thing is that it's not easy. Now, it only becomes easy if you all agree, if we all agree that the Hegelian dialectic is absolutely right. There has to be an idea and a counter idea, and something will come out. But the thing is, if we all agree, then where is the counter idea? So the counter idea has to come from somewhere. The counter idea has to come from some drunkard, some druggie, some somebody who's totally an outcast, somebody who is not really registered by an authentic commentator. The point here is that in modern day, nowadays, chatter has also become an institution. And there are these so-called thought fascists who've taken over chatter. And because they use lots of acceptable words, the politically correct words, the terminology, and that is how chatter tries to suppress what you want and what you want to do in terms of self-determination. So it is very important for you to understand all that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you enjoyed the video, click the like button and the subscribe, and do share. Any comments you have, leave in the comment section and we will get back to you. Thank you so much.